Hello, hello, good evening. We are resilient.
Hello.
We are war.
Do you know who Dodo Irish 77 is? It's just a really interesting name.
Yes, she's a supporter of Hellfish Haven. She has been a supporter through both the website purchasing some Hellfish Haven products, and she actually does live in that part of the world.
No kidding. She was on last week with number 500. She was there the whole time. So, hey, just thank you for your support. It was a really special moment. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Dodo. We appreciate you turning in for war, and definitely for following through on episode 500. It was definitely an awesome event to be able to see everything turn out and how it
What'd you think? What'd you think? Because I'll tell you why I sang, but tell me what you thought, Mikey.
So for me, I got to watch it twice. The first time I watched it, like I said to you when you asked me about it, I said, I watched it the first time as a person, just, a fan watching it as a veteran, seeing a veteran podcast and seeing, the story being told in front of me. The second time I watched it as a person thinking, what's going on out there? How can I, watch this and give advice to Travis on future episodes and things like that. What is good, what's bad. The AAR format. 3 ups, 3 downs. And ending on positive, things like that. So what I did the second time going through it, I really watched it as somebody else that creates, as a fellow creator and things like that. And what I saw was actually better than the first time watching it. Seeing you out in the field, connecting with somebody, being able to tell a story and then build upon it, like with it's the second chapter, third chapter, whatever how you want to title it. But like going from the talk with Mistress Carey, about the information, learning about it, and then seeing it in action was something that I really enjoyed, and I really liked to see. Hey, the veteran community is doing X, Y, Z, and then actually seeing the veteran community doing X, Y, Z. A lot of times people will show things and then build the story afterwards, where you kind of did it reverse, where you kind of gave the story and then showed how it's in action afterwards. I thought, to me, kept me more engaged.
Very interesting because, I got to tell you, man, a lot of people were like, hey, you should have had this as like, a 10-year Travis's greatest hits, or all about Travis, and, all about, Oscar Mike Radio. And, the focus should have been more on you and your accomplishments and, recognition about you. And I had thought about it a while ago, honestly, but the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, that's just what everybody would do. Everybody would want to take a huge victory lap, look at me, I'm the greatest, so on and so forth. Where I thought, hey, let's just treat this like another show, but really show that I'm more than just a guy on a Zoom call or StreamYard, video. I can get out there in the field and get the story, and I can create something that is really meaningful. And then, as we talked about here on, war, we talked about this. We really think, you and I, that the next phase of advocacy, especially with everything going on, we need civilians to really buy into what veterans are faced with and dealing with, so we can get the kind of, from the local all the way up to the White House, the kind of leadership that's going to protect us. And I think when I watched it back like you did, there were a lot of civilians on that show that cared very deeply about veterans. And I think more people need to see that. So I am really happy with the way it turned out, and I'm really proud of those people who decided to share, their perspectives so openly. Because a lot of civilians want to, be in our world. They want to understand it, but they feel like they might be, imposters, if you will. And hopefully that moves that forward. So thanks for everything you did. It was really nice, and good surprise talking to Colonel Notch and some others. And I got a nice email from Deputy Secretary Andrew Gale Bennett. So it was good stuff, man.
Absolutely. And I feel like you celebrate it the way that you have done the series from the get-go. The focus, of your story isn't, always your story. It is you being able to highlight other people's stories in a manner that you're able to do because you are good at that art of storytelling, because you can get those questions out from people and you can make them feel comfortable enough to share their experiences, that you're able to get that versus, other podcasts and other shows that are very, host centric, because it's them telling the story of their life, of their, of their adventures, of their, trials and tribulations, versus I feel Oscar Mike is a story being told of a community, of of generations, both past and present, working to, create a better future for, the veteran community as a whole.
Right. I mean, think about it. I mean, that guy, Dean, who was the first one up for Rolling Thunder, was one of those individuals who has never shared in a forum like that before, never wanted to talk about that at all. And he had a good experience. He had a good experience. And, some of the women who talked about why they did this, even though they either were just, female veterans themselves or civilians, I think it's a message that needs to be heard, because, the thing I want to, kind of shift to is I am trying to, we have the situation with the OVA, which looks like it's on a stable situation now with a supplemental budget, but the stuff going on at our nation's high, like, can you kind of frame what's going on with Richard Starr Act and all this? Because there's so much slinging around. It's hard to figure out what's actually going on and why this is important. Like I did not think we'd be having this kind of conversation with who's in the White House.
So,
right. So
I'll touch on this, and I'll explain kind of what's happening from I am one of those members. I am one of the some have it as 54,000, others have it as 59,000 combat injured veterans that had their military service shortened because of being medically retired after being injured in a combat zone, and then being forced into medical retirement prior to hitting the 18.5 or 20-year mark that normally will give a veteran their retirement, in full. And so because of that, we fall subject to this rule that came out that said you can't collect both your military retirement from the Department of Defense, Department of the Army, Department of the Marine Corps, Department of Navy, Department of Air Force, whichever you're part of. You can't collect that retirement and collect VA compensation and pension, which is different. It's not the same. You're not collecting two retirements. You're collecting a retirement from the military, from the Department of Defense, the Department of War, whatever you want to call it, for your service there, your years put in there, and you're being medically retired for that. And then the VA compensation and pension is a compensation and a pension for the injuries you sustained during your time, to show, hey, you get 10% for this, you get 20% for that. You get, 40%, 70%, whatever your rating is, you get these ratings for the disability, that you're putting in for. And I hate that they use it as the word disability, because it really isn't that. It's not a disability claim. It's not an SSDI. It's not a Social Security. You're getting it for, loss of your future. The things that happen to us overseas, the things that are stuck with, guy's stomach, the PTSD, the mental health, your knees from jumping out of planes, your people's backs from, the IBA and having things on, all of these things that you endure as part of the Army and all the wear and tear on your body, that is what the VA compensates you for. And that's what has always been out there. And so what they're doing is they're looking to say, hey, Major Richard Starr wants to be able to say, let's not do that. If you have a compensation and you have a retirement, you should be able to collect both. You should be able to get it from Department of Defense, from DFAS, Defense Finance Accounting System. You should be able to get DFAS to pay your retirement, and also get the VA to give you your compensation and pension as well. It shouldn't be either or. And some guys like me, I get combat related special compensation. So I get the, $300 difference, back in a non-taxable check every month because my injury was, caused overseas and my retirement was because of that. So it's just, it's one of those things that, we want to change the offset and make it so you don't have to get one or the other because, you're collecting from Department of Defense and you're collecting from the VA. They're two separate things and you should be able to collect both those. Okay.
That's
so-
kind of what I thought. I mean, people ask like, why are veterans getting so, emotional about this? And why is I said, because, people have been chipping at this for years. They've been trying to find ways to cheapen it up for years. And if they can do it with this, they can pretty much do it anywhere else they want to. And the thing is, they'll never come back. They'll never say, you know what, we kind of messed up. We'll give that back. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Mm-hmm. And that's the big thing that I see is that when you look at this and you see how we got things going on, you see that, for the last 5 years, we've been trying to pass this Major Richard Starr Act. 5 years, it goes in, it comes up, somebody goes in front of it and says, no, we can't fund it because it's going to cost us, $7 billion over 10 years to fund this. And it's like, when you look at things like, the conflicts going on in Iran right now, we've spent almost $100 billion in just the, several months that's been going on. And, we cannot come up with $7 billion to take care of veterans for 10 years. That's, to me is absolutely ludicrous. And the fact that, you have 313 sponsors of this act. And then all of a sudden you've got, when it comes time to get the, the people to sign it, to get it in front of, for a vote, you got the discharge petition. We need to get 218 signatures for that. We are stuck at 213. We cannot get 5 signatures from people. And there are 60 veterans in the House of Representatives that have not signed that discharge petition. There are 60 of our fellow vets that have not signed it to be able to say, let's go forward with a vote. The worst that can happen is they vote no, but at least we then get a vote on paper. That's all we're asking for is a chance. And we just want that chance to stand before the House and ask for help.
I read that. That's not an exaggeration. Like, you served our country, you raised your right hand, and you refuse to allow us to go forward to a vote. I mean, I'm not trying to be like a rabble rouser here, but that's a betrayal.
Oh, I'll find out for you. But yeah, like you said, that's absolutely, one of those things that, should be a simple thing. You serve, sign this, let it go forward. And, and then you're trying to say that you're going to cut it when they wanted to go forward with this, Taking Care of America's Veterans Act and Section 108, which was going to put into law the removal of tinnitus and sleep apnea as a compensatable disability for veterans. That would remove $58 billion from veterans' pockets to do a $8 billion offset for, the Department of Defense, Department of War. Like, it doesn't make sense why we're taking money from veterans' pockets to pay something that the Department of Defense should be covering. And that's why, your VFWs, your DAVs, IAVA were so up in arms about this and angry about it. And then, when you saw on the other hand, the organization supporting it and pushing it through, they have a lot of dark money going on. A lot of those people that were pushing yes on TCAVA are money, receiving from the Koch brothers, the Koch brothers, KOCH. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yep.
But a lot of them get money from that, and it's it's just crazy to see how all this is done. And today, they keep trying to push it in different ways, but they can't be pushing this forward. And if you want to take it for a second, Travis, are you searching for the Tim, or do you want me to?
Look and search for it.
I'm going to search Tim to see if he signed the discharge petition.
Yeah, you're going to hear things. You've seen things that people on the media about, well, do we really need to pay for tinnitus damage? Do people's ears really get damaged that much? Is that really a big deal? Is every veteran saying that they got their ears a little fuzzy? Is that really for real? And, you know, I worked in a loud environment, but not like if you're working on a flight line or in a ship or in a, you know, armored vehicle or you know, working on a rotary wing. It gets loud. And yeah, you're given earplugs, but as we saw with the 3M lawsuit case, they were ineffective. And, you know, you talk to somebody who's suffering with tinnitus from, you know, their military service, that ringing never goes away. It's not like, oh yeah, you know, it's going to be, you know, better in the summer or wintertime, whatever. It is constant. It is constant. And when you can't hear at 25, 30 years old and realize, oh yeah, I got a whole lifetime of this. Okay. And I liked what Commander-in-Chief Carol Whitmore said from the DFW. These kinds of things are the cost of going to war. And if you're not willing to take care of the veteran, then you should not go to war. Period. And I think, Mike, that's why a lot of us are really reluctant at this point to allow ground troops in Iran right now. Like, are we there to win, or are we going to, you know, do this in a way that gets the job done? Or is this going to be another, you know, 10, 15, 20-year boondoggle where, you know, American blood, American lives, and American youth are messed up? And oh, yeah, we can't take care of them. That's the problem. And again, I tell people, like, look, once this stuff goes away, if they get their way, it's never coming back. They'll recalibrate and look for ways to tighten the noose even more. And I don't know about you, Mikey, but I'm like, well, you know, you're not, you know, very disabled. Do you really need that? Do you really need that? And I'm like, I would gladly give back every penny that I have received from the U.S. government if I could walk normally again. If when the wintertime hit, I wasn't in agony 5 to 6 months out of the year, I'd give it all back tomorrow. No problem. But that's not going to happen. It's something I got to live with. You have to live with your stuff, Michael. And it's like, wait a minute, you know, because you get it from one, you can't get it from both. It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. And yeah, I mean, it's something that I'm happy in one respect, like with Office of the Veteran Advocate. Some Americans who haven't served our civilian counterparts who are patriots are like, this is freaking wrong. We're not going to allow this to go forward. But I am just, you know, gobsmacked and incredulous that, you know, people who serve our country are dragging their feet on this. And I think you're right. The only thing you can come up with is someone's paying them off to, someone has a really big financial stake in this. And why? I don't know.
And right here, like, you know, Mo says, you know, they have no problem, you know, sending us off to fight and, you know, saying that, you know, they'll cover us, you know, when we get, you know, come back home. But when it comes time to collect that,
yes,
they often forget, you know, who's going to pay up. And, you know, that's the sad part to see. And that's the tough part for all of us to understand is, you know, what's going on and how to, you know, continue, you know, doing this. How do we say to a next generation, how can we, you know, ask you to serve, and how can we say, hey, you know, be a recruiter for us, and, you know, go out there and, you know, be a person to say, you know, a good ambassador of the service, you know, after you get out, so that way future generations will join when you're not, you know, being taken care of yourself. Hi, you want to say hi real quick? We got a little guest that wants to say hi real quick.
Oh my word! Hey, how you doing, honey?
Good.
Hey, Mikey,
I'm
it's getting
going
weird.
to Nanny house today. I'm going to a doctor today.
She went to
You're
the
going to the
doctor at Mary's house today.
Yep, it's hard to do two things.
She had to do two things. Say bye now. So, no, she had to get a shot today at her physical. So she was
Okay.
all worried about that when she went with Mama this morning to it. But when she got out of there, she was, you know, a tough cookie and was all, you know, had a little tear coming down. She's like, I did it, Dad. I did it. So it's really, you know, it sounds like those that, you know, you get real proud to see, you know, she's fighting back the tears, but she's, you know, wants to show that how strong she is to Dada.
Nice.
But yeah, back on the act, like I said, Val, I don't know if you saw, but representative there has not signed the discharge petition yet. And like I said, it's wild to me that these guys, won't just sign that to go up, and then other folks online will say, hey, it doesn't matter if it signs, it'll be dead in the Senate anyways. And then you look at who's stopping it in the Senate, and it's you've had 3 Republicans over the last 2 years stand up and stop it. Rand Paul, Will Cox, and somebody else. I have a thing on it. I can touch base with somebody afterwards if they want more information on who the 3 are that have stopped it. But I've stood up and said, nope, we're not allowing this bill to move forward. When the bill has, 300 people sponsoring the bill to be brought up in the first place, and then, it's got, 80 members in the first place to sign it, in the Senate, and then it's one person that stops it. It's, one person that, kills it. It's 4 people that are stopping it from becoming, brought to the floor for even a vote to be held. So it's really, it's really hurtful to see this happen, and to vote for these people in office and think that they have your back, and that they take the pictures at the VFWs, and they take the pictures at the different events with veterans, and they're quick to throw a group of veterans sitting in a circle around the representative, and I'm here for you, I'm for the vets, and then when it comes time to get a vote and to get hey, can you help us, we can't actually get them to to answer the phone and to put their name on something. If you were so willing to sign it to be able to put it into, the steps of legislation to begin with, to be able to sponsor its, creation, why aren't you willing to put your name on it now to sponsor it to become to a vote? Like, it's almost like they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to sign their name to it to get credit, pat me on the back, I signed this to help create the Major Richard Star Act. But then when it comes time to vote for it, they don't want to have to, be put on the record voting against it. So they're not willing to even get to the floor to have a vote.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, I'm trying to explain to people is if they can keep bringing it to a vote, they can play both sides against the middle, right? But you're right. The minute this goes for a vote, they're going to have to be noted. Hey, who supports this and who doesn't? And I think a lot of these guys know, and women know, that if this goes for a vote and they don't vote for it, they're never going to recover from that. I mean, yeah, they probably will, but I mean, they'll never get any kind of veteran vote ever again. Like, why would you want one of these people to stand with you for anything when you realize they have hurt so many veterans at this stage in their lives?
Yeah. And it's just, it's all these things that we see, and, we just want to make sure that everybody is getting what is, not just, promised, but what is owed to them. When you sign a contract and you're saying, you go ahead and you give your life, up to your life itself to the country to be able to defend the Constitution, and then you said you'll be taken care of on the backside. We just want to make sure that folks are being taken care of on that backside. We're not asking for anything crazy. We're not asking for, brand new houses for every veteran. We're not asking for, new cars for every veteran. We're not asking for, a lifetime, we're not asking for a lottery win. We're just asking for the basic, you said that you would take care of us. Please take care of us. And it's not, every single veteran that we're asking for. This is a group that's already been vetted. This is a group that's already gone through. They've already been proven, that they were medically retired, and that they were medically retired due to their injuries sustained in combat. These are combat injured veterans that you are saying you're not even willing to give them a chance to have a vote on the floor. Like I said, again, the number goes between 54,000 and 59,000. But in respects to, how many people are out there on different programs and different things, if you want to compare, tit for tat, you can look at, other social programs that are out there, and the funding that it costs to take care of people is a hell of a lot higher than it would be to pass the Major Richard Star Act and get the difference for these, combat injured veterans.
Yeah, well, yeah, the thing. Don't tell me we need to send money to this country, that country, or this needs group, non-citizens, illegal non-citizens, when you can't take care of this. I don't want to hear it anymore. And then those who really, especially the ones who are serving, who are veterans, and they don't want to support this, or they didn't support this, okay, we're going to call you out. But I guess, the other thing I want to know is there's a lot of hullabaloo about what the VFW did with their graphics on this, with the, the three people pointing the firearms.
I'll show folks if they don't know. I've got a couple of these uploaded already. So
yeah, if you don't mind. Honor the contract. That one right there. Oh, that's
this
terrible.
right here.
Terrible. I didn't find this terrible. I found this as, hey, this is what's actually happening. This is what's being allowed to happen. The media is in the same bed as these people trying to push this through with no care for the veteran. And when you have to look at it in that framework, in those kinds of terms, it's like, okay, I really can't ignore this. Yes, the image is disturbing. It's supposed to be disturbing. I'm glad it's disturbing. We need people to be disturbed and ask questions. Why is that happening? Why is a 125-year-old organization doing that at this time? Oh, yes, because they're watching their membership, get railroaded like this. And people who are supposed to care about their membership, and people like Mike, aren't. And again, this is how this happens. Once they get this through, they're going to figure out how to get the playbook set to where they can do it again and again and again.
And they do.
So,
and if we don't stop it now, we are allowing them to to take advantage of us later on.
So I don't care if it's disturbing. I'm glad it's disturbing. Good.
And I'm going to add a couple more files if it'll let me to just show you real quick a couple of the other things that I've shared out there. Well, I got to delete a couple to make it fit. And it's it's these different things that are out there that you want to be able to have these things, and like they have the commanders that are out there voting against this for us, and folks that are saying we don't want to have them this out there, and we're going to fight against this, and we want to make sure that everyone is is taken care of. But then at the same time, they're not actually fulfilling the promise, And that one with the honor the contract and the political cartoon, you can see that, and it's simply just having folks here's the three that have stopped it. Again, posting pictures right out there with veterans for everything that we do. But they won't stand up. These three have individually stood up and said, no, the Major Richard Starr Act will not go forward because it's not being paid for by another VA program. And again, it's not a VA program to be paid for.
It's not a VA program, no.
And then here's the other one that I've made for Hellfish Haven.
I do not. I mean, I'm trying to learn a lot about this guy before I make a position statement, but I mean, on the surface, I have to think he's either being promised something.
The word is that Commander Wiley has intention to run for office, and that the folks in the House of Representatives will back him if he backs the Taking Care of American Veterans Act. So that's why the American Legion broke out of the your legacy VSOs and all of a sudden supported the Taking Care of American Veterans Act. And you saw that the Texas American Legion broke away from the American Legion as a whole and said, we do not support this act. We are against it, and we will not allow you to speak for us, Commander Wiley.
I mean, that's just ballsy, man. That is just ballsy. So I think our voices are being heard, because looking at it, I think if they could just walk this through, they already would have. But I think it's just, if we can, let's just see how much we can delay this and then, get it going. Well, and there you go. Let's see here. This is Maury Sunshine.
Yep.
The thing is, for whatever reason, our fellow countrymen are kind of like numb to this. And a lot of these elected officials don't have to worry about getting voted out. If they had to worry about their seat and realize just how upset people were, maybe be different. But they're like, okay, we can just do whatever we want to do, and people are going to, give us what we want, and nothing's going to happen to us.
Folks get, they get real comfortable in their position, and the benefits that come along with it. These folks all go into office, having a certain amount of money in their bank accounts and their their net worth, and then by the time they all leave office, not a single one of them is not a millionaire.
Yeah.
Whether they're insider trading on votes, whether they're getting paid off, whether they're getting paid for talking at different conferences and things like that you get paid for, paid spokesmanship, and different things like that. They teeter the line of what's legal and not. And then in the end, they all walk out of office in a much better step than they walked into it. And then here's a breakdown of the Major Richard Starr Act versus taking care of Americans, taking care of American Veterans Act. So the clean bill, full concurrent receipt, you get it the minute it's signed. Boom, it would start coming over to you. Equal treatment for combat disabled retirees, immediate relief. You get the money, you're covered. The mega bill is a system that's complex. You have to put in the amount of time that you've served. You have to put in the percentage that you're disabled. You have to put in, X, Y, and Z into a formula to be able to put it out. And then it's not even going to begin to start putting payouts until January 2027 at the earliest. So delayed payouts, more audits, more oversight. It's just going to be more crap that veterans are going to have to jump through in order to get this bill that should be theirs. And to me, that's just wild. No, 100% right there, Morning.
It's really annoying me. And, I'm like, okay, maybe I got to see how our senators, representatives are feeling about it. I haven't really tracked that down yet. And I think now that, the OVAs, again, so just on the OVA front, again, it's my understanding from people at the office and other people, and Senator Keenan, who wrote me back, thank you very much, Senator Keenan, is that something happened. And yes, the funding was cut for FY27. But I don't know. It sounds like, I don't know how you cut something in half and not really know what's going on, but I get it. It's a big budget. But since the budget's pretty much the same as it was last year, the feeling is with the supplemental budget process where they go through and reevaluate this, it shouldn't be a big leap to restore funding for FY27. And then it's my understanding after that, the idea is to make sure that this is a prioritized line item in the budget going forward, so never have to do that again. But as I said before, when people wrote, called, and emailed their local senator and local state representative's office, people paid attention. So our voices were heard. And I think you're on. I just don't think a lot of these people at the White House, or not the White House, but in the Congress and Senate, have any concern about their jobs. I'm just going to keep rolling along and doing this. Because if you were like, people were upset they be doing something differently? So I think now that the OVA is somewhat stable, I mean, you know, I'm told it should be a good outcome, and we got to wait. I think my next thing is to get a hold of Senator Lynch, Senator Warren, Senator Markey, and
Yep.
say, hey guys, like,
For those that don't know, the OVA is the Office of the Veterans Advocate.
yep. Now that this is kind of stabilized, you know, for the time being, okay, you know, what are you all doing? You
Yep.
know, why? I mean, what can be done, and how do you feel about this? And I can get them on record.
Absolutely. And like I said, you know, that's the biggest thing is, you know, if we can get these guys to, you know, to put the discharge petition forward and get those signatures, you know, to get a vote, then we can actually see who is voting for it and who's not. So that way we can hold people accountable. And, you know, even if a vote will not pass, being able to get a vote is a win in itself. So then we can hold people accountable in the voting booth. That way we can hold them accountable come November when it's time to say yay or nay to keeping them in office. So that's what we need to do. And I think that's really the big pressure that we need to put on these people. And it's why we need to, you know, push forward a clean Major Richard Starr to be able to see, hey, what can we do with this? And why can, you know, we move this forward? And what can we do next?
Well, I got 10 minutes till my show time, so I gotta get going, Mikey. But you know, I think that's what'll happen is I'm gonna, you know, go deep into this over the weekend, and then, you know, rinse and repeat what I did for the OVA. Like, hey, here's you know, in Massachusetts, here's how to get hold of your, you know, your you know, federal and you know, state federal rep and senator.
Yep.
I want a position about how they feel about this and what they're doing about this.
And Moni, what we'll do is we'll get more information for you next week, and we'll put it all together so we have a more evidence-backed show for you guys, so we can let you guys know, you know, who is, you know, for, who is against, the areas where we can, you know, push forward and really try to, you know, make a difference in this. And then tonight, who did you say you have on tonight?
So I have on Lena Rodriguez. She's a Chief Warrant Officer 5, retired U.S. Army veteran. She did a lot of stuff in CID, and she was part of Miss Veteran America. And, you know, through that organization, you know, she supports female veterans and other veterans initiatives. Interesting conversation. She had a very, you know, when the Army says be all you can be, she, you know, really encapsulated all that. I think it's a very interesting story, and, you know, it was a good conversation.
Absolutely. CW5. That's, you know, that's a heck of an accomplishment in itself.
Right. That's the God mode walking around, you know.
Mm-hmm. Ain't nobody
So,
messing with CW5 ever anywhere.
No.
So yeah, absolutely. Check out, you know, Oscar Mike Radio just a few minutes from now. Your favorite podcast spot. If you guys stay here on YouTube, go over to Oscar Mike Radio. Check out his channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching tonight. And we will catch you guys next week. And Moni, thank you. We appreciate it. And we'll let you guys know what's going on next week for everything that's happening.
We'll
Is
see you soon.
right here. Val knows she's a damn unicorn. So definitely looking forward to that story next. Take care, guys. We'll see you all next week.